The stars were silent, as if holding their breath. For 3,000 years, humanity had been missing from the great stage of the galaxy. Many believed they were gone forever, wiped away like dust on an ancient stone. Their home Earth had been reduced to ashes by the mighty Zorath Empire, and so the galaxy moved on, thinking humans were only a lost story. Nothing more than a legend told in whispers. But legends have a way of returning. Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge of the Solar Vanguard, the flagship of humanity's hidden fleet. His eyes, sharp and steady, gazed at the endless blackness beyond the glass of the viewing deck. To others it was just space, but to him it was memory. He remembered the old records, the last screams from Earth, the destruction that had ended everything. Beside him stood Captain Aria Vey, one of the youngest officers, yet fierce and loyal. Her voice was steady but carried a spark of emotion. "Admiral, the fleet is ready. The last of our supply ships have docked. We await only your word." Kalen nodded. His voice, deep and calm, filled the bridge. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors fled the burning of Earth. They swore that one day we would return. That day begins now. The crew stood taller at his words. Generations had prepared for this. Entire colonies had lived in shadows, building ships, training soldiers, teaching children about a home they had never seen. Earth was only a memory to them, but it was also a fire that never died. The Solar Vanguard carried the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. It was a fortress in space, with weapons powered by antimatter cores and shields strong enough to endure a supernova's wave. Yet Kalen knew that weapons alone were not enough. What made humanity powerful was something deeper: their will, their unity, their memory of loss. In the strategy chamber, a great hologram glowed in the air. It showed the galaxy and the wide red borders of the Zorath Empire. The empire stretched like a claw, covering countless star systems. At the edge of the map was a tiny symbol, glowing blue. It marked the ruins of Earth. Kalen placed his hand on the symbol. His voice dropped low, heavy with meaning. "This is where it began. This is where we return." The officers around him listened in silence. Each of them had grown up hearing bedtime stories about Earth. They had never seen its oceans, forests, or skies, yet they carried the dream in their hearts. The Zorath, in their golden halls far across the stars, had long forgotten humanity. To them, humans were weak creatures who had once resisted but failed. In their records, the burning of Earth was described as a warning to others. Defy the Zorath and your world will vanish. But while the Zorath grew arrogant and proud, humans learned patience. They hid in nebulae and unknown systems. They traded with small free species in secret. They studied ancient sciences and built weapons the Zorath had never seen. Now, after centuries of waiting, humanity's hidden colonies united under one flag, the Terran Exodus Fleet. They were no longer just survivors. They were an army. On the eve of their journey, Kalen gathered his soldiers in the grand assembly hall of the Solar Vanguard. Thousands of men and women stood in rows, their uniforms shining under the lights. The hall was silent, waiting. Kalen stepped onto the platform, his voice echoing across the chamber. "Children of Earth," he began, "our ancestors lost everything. Their home was destroyed, their families scattered. For 3,000 years we wandered like shadows, forgotten by the galaxy. But we did not forget. We did not surrender. We carried the dream of Earth inside us. And now the time has come." His words struck deep into every heart, faces lit with determination. Some eyes burned with anger, others with pride, but all shared the same purpose. Kalen raised his hand, pointing toward the star map glowing behind him. "The Zorath believe we are gone. They believe Earth is nothing but dust. Tomorrow we prove them wrong. We show the galaxy that humanity does not die. We rise from ashes." The hall thundered with voices as soldiers raised their fists in unison. "For Earth!" they shouted. The cry echoed like a storm through the ship's halls. Far away in the command center of the Zorath High Council, a messenger ship arrived with troubling news. A small patrol had encountered unknown warships at the galaxy's edge. The ships bore strange symbols, circles around a blue sphere. Some Zorath commanders dismissed it as pirates, but others felt uneasy. One elder counselor, wise and sharp, spoke softly. 3,000 years ago, we destroyed a world called Earth. Those ships, the symbol, it is the same. Could it be? The council chamber grew silent. Then the High Warlord laughed. Impossible. Humans are dust. Even if some survived, they are nothing. We crushed them once and we can do it again. But the seed of fear had already been planted. Meanwhile, the human fleet prepared for its first move. Admiral Kalen ordered a test mission, a strike against a Zorath outpost built near one of humanity's lost colonies. Captain Arya stood beside him as the ships aligned. "Do you think they will recognize us immediately, sir?" she asked. Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Let them recognize us. Let them remember what they did." The fleet surged into hyperspace, streaking through the stars like spears of light. Each soldier knew that this was not just a battle. It was the first step of a journey written across centuries. As they traveled, Kalen looked once more at the ancient recordings from the destruction of Earth. The images were blurry, broken by time, but the sounds were clear. The screams of cities, the fire raining from the skies, the silence that followed. He closed the file and whispered to himself, "Earth, your children are coming home." In the silence of space, the fleet moved closer to its destiny. The ashes of Earth waited, and beyond them, the Zorath Empire. Humanity had been gone for 3,000 years. But now they were returning, not as refugees, but as a force that would change the galaxy forever. And so the legend of Earth began again. The silence of space broke when the Solar Vanguard and the Terran fleet came out of hyperspace. In the distance floated a massive Zorath outpost, built on the ruins of an abandoned human colony world. The planet below was lifeless, its surface scarred from ancient battles. The Zorath had turned it into a mining station, guarded by warships with golden hulls that gleamed like fire in the darkness. Admiral Kalen stood on the command deck, watching the enemy ships through the vast viewing glass. His expression was calm, though his heart carried the weight of centuries. Humanity had been silent for so long, hiding in the shadows, but now the galaxy would hear their voice again. "Fleet is in formation," reported Captain Arya Vey, her hands moving across the console. "The Zorath patrol has detected us. They are powering weapons." Kalen's voice was low but firm. "Let them see us clearly. No more hiding. First strike." The Zorath ships closed in, their golden armor reflecting starlight. They sent a message across the channel, their voices sharp and arrogant. "Unknown fleet, identify yourselves or be destroyed. This is Zorath territory." Kalen answered with words that carried 3,000 years of silence. "We are the children of Earth. We are humanity. And we have returned." The Zorath commander laughed, his voice echoing with disbelief. "Impossible. Earth was burned to ash centuries ago. Humans are extinct." Kalen leaned closer to the comm. His eyes burned with determination. "Then consider this your reminder. Earth lives in us. And today we rise." The transmission ended. At once the battle began. Human ships surged forward in precise formations. The Solar Vanguard unleashed beams of pure energy, cutting through Zorath shields with terrifying accuracy. Smaller human fighters darted through the field, moving faster than the enemy could track. The Zorath fought back fiercely, their cannons firing golden bolts of plasma. Explosions tore across the void, lighting up the battlefield. Yet the humans moved like shadows, their ships weaving between blasts, their weapons striking weak points the Zorath never expected. It was the first time in 3,000 years that Zorath ships fell before human fire. A message to the galaxy, the outpost collapsed under the assault. Human marines stormed the station, disabling its defenses and planting the symbol of Earth, the blue circle around a shining sphere. When the battle was over, Admiral Kalen sent a message across the galactic channels, knowing it would reach far beyond the Zorath. "To all who hear this," he declared, his voice carried by every ship in the fleet, "this is Admiral Kalen of the Terran Exodus fleet. Humanity has returned. We are the children of Earth, and we remember what was taken from us. We will no longer hide. We will no longer wander. We are here, and we will endure." The message traveled through the stars, reaching worlds far and near. Many alien species long under Zorath rule heard it with awe. Some whispered in secret, "Humans live. Humans have come back." The Zorath, however, raged at the insult. To them, this was not only defiance but a wound to their pride. The High Council reacts in the Grand Hall of the Zorath High Council. The leaders gathered in fury. The walls glowed with golden light, and towering statues of their past victories loomed over them. A commander threw the report onto the table. "The outpost at Veyron Colony has fallen. The attackers, they called themselves humans." Voices rose in disbelief. "Impossible. They are dust." perhaps pretenders. But one elder, Counselor Tharix, spoke with a grave tone. No. I remember the war against Earth. The humans were stubborn, clever, and bold. If they have survived, even in hiding, they will be dangerous. The High Warlord slammed his fist against the table, his golden armor ringing with sound. Dangerous. They are vermin! If they dare show themselves again, we will crush them as before. I will not allow these ghosts to shame the Empire. Yet despite his anger, a shadow of doubt crept into the hearts of the Council. Ghosts, perhaps, but ghosts that fought like fire. Sparks across the stars while the Zorath debated. Whispers of humanity spread across the galaxy. On distant worlds enslaved by the Empire, alien workers looked to the sky with hope. The name Earth became a secret song, a reminder that the Zorath were not invincible. In one mining colony, a young alien boy asked his father, "What are humans?" His father whispered back, "A people who never gave up. If they have returned, then maybe one day we too will be free." The spark of rebellion began to glow, faint but alive. Humanity's unity on the solar vanguard. The fleet celebrated their first victory. In the great halls, soldiers embraced, engineers cheered, and Marines raised cups in honor of Earth. But Admiral Kalen remained solemn. He knew this was only the beginning. In the command chamber, Captain Arya spoke quietly. "We've shown ourselves now. The Zorath will not ignore us again. They will send everything they have." Kalen nodded. "Yes, they will come in numbers greater than we can imagine. But let them come. For 3,000 years we have prepared, and now we are ready." He turned to the holographic map of the galaxy, where countless Zorath-controlled systems glowed red. Slowly, the blue light of the human fleet began to spread, one liberated outpost at a time. Encounter with the oppressed. Their next mission took them to a star system where a race called the Valons lived under Zorath rule. The Valons were slender beings with silver eyes, once proud scholars now reduced to servants in their own cities. When the human fleet arrived and struck down the Zorath garrison, the Valons watched in shock. A group of Valon elders approached Admiral Kalen on the surface. "Are you truly human?" one of them asked, his voice trembling. Kalen stood tall. "Yes, we are from Earth." The Valons bowed, tears shining in their eyes. "We thought you were gone forever. The Zorath told us you were erased, nothing but dust." Arya stepped forward, her voice firm. "Dust cannot burn, but fire can, and humanity is fire." The Valons whispered among themselves, hope stirring for the first time in centuries. They pledged loyalty to the humans, offering knowledge of Zorath supply lines and hidden weaknesses. Humanity was no longer alone. They had found their first ally, the symbol of fire. The fleet adopted a new banner, a blazing blue sphere encircled by silver light, representing Earth reborn. Every time they liberated a world or defeated an outpost, they planted the banner for all to see. To remind them, Kalen said, that Earth is not forgotten, and that humans return not as beggars but as warriors. The galaxy watched, some in fear, some in hope, but none could deny the truth. The forgotten race of humans had returned. The storm-to-come news of these victories soon reached the farthest edges of the Zorath Empire. More rebellions began to stir, small and fragile but growing. The Zorath High Council finally declared humanity a priority threat. Entire fleets were prepared to hunt them down, but humanity was ready. They were not the broken refugees of old. They were united, armed and filled with purpose. Kalen stood once again before his soldiers. His voice carried like thunder. "We have shown the galaxy who we are. We are not ghosts. We are not forgotten. We are the fire of Earth, and we will light the stars with our return." The soldiers raised their fists, shouting in unison, "For Earth!" The cry rolled across the fleet like a storm, echoing into the endless night. And somewhere in the shadows of the galaxy, the Zorath prepared to strike back. But for the first time in 3,000 years, they felt a tremor of fear. The forgotten had returned, and they would not be forgotten again. The galaxy had not seen humans for 3,000 years. Now their return was no longer a secret. Their victories spread across space like whispers of fire carried by the wind. On worlds oppressed by the Zorath Empire, people spoke quietly of the Terran fleet. On mining colonies, on slave worlds, even in the hidden corners of the galaxy, the same words were repeated. The children of Earth are back. The weight of a name on the flagship solar vanguard. Admiral Kalen stood before the glowing star map. Red markers showed the vast reach of the Zorath Empire. A few blue lights marked the places where humans had struck and won. They were small victories compared to the size of the Empire, yet they carried greater meaning than numbers could show. Captain Arya Vey entered the chamber and stood beside him. Her voice was steady but curious. "Do you see what's happening, Admiral? It's not just about battles anymore. Entire systems are listening to us. Our name has become a spark." Kalen's eyes narrowed as he studied the map. Yes, and sparks can become fire. He knew the truth. Weapons could destroy ships, but hope could move entire galaxies. Whispers in the dark on the world of Thaler Prime. Alien workers toiled under Zorath overseers. For centuries, the Zorath had ruled them with fear. But now, hidden in their homes, they gathered in secret. A small device replayed the human broadcast from Admiral Kalen. "We are the children of Earth. We will no longer hide." The Thaler elders sat in silence as the message ended. Finally, one of them whispered, "If humans survived and fight back, then maybe we can rise too." The others nodded. For the first time in generations, their fear began to fade. Similar scenes happened across other worlds. In the shadows of Zorath rule, people dared to dream of freedom. A meeting of allies. The Valens, the silver-eyed people who had just joined humanity, sent envoys to Kalen. They offered maps, intelligence, and safe harbors. On the Solar Vanguard, Kalen welcomed them with respect. "We do not ask you to fight our war," he told the Valen elder Sareth. "But your knowledge can save lives," Sareth bowed. "We will give more than knowledge. We will give you trust. You humans carry fire in your spirit. That fire may light the path for us all." The fleet now had allies, though fragile. It was enough to give them strength. The Zorath counterattack. The High Council of the Zorath grew furious. They could no longer deny the truth. Humans had returned and they were dangerous. The High Warlord sent fleets to hunt them down. The first major clash came near the nebula of Tyron. The Zorath deployed a massive armada, expecting to crush the humans in one blow. On the Solar Vanguard, Kalen addressed his captains. "The Zorath will come with arrogance. They believe us weak. Let us show them that humans do not fight with fear. We fight with unity." The battle began with fire across the stars. The Zorath unleashed thousands of warships, their golden armor blazing. But the humans used tactics the Empire had never seen. Instead of meeting the armada head-on, Kalen split his fleet into wings. Smaller strike groups darted through the nebula, using its clouds to hide. Zorath ships fell into traps, their formations broken. Human weapons pierced their shields with precision. The battle raged for hours. By the end, the Zorath armada retreated, leaving wreckage behind. It was a victory that shook the Empire to its core. Rebellion ignites news of the human victory spread like wildfire. On world after world, small groups rose against the Zorath. On the planet Jirath, miners refused to work. On Solora, rebels attacked Zorath patrols. On Verdun, the people tore down statues of the Zorath warlords and replaced them with banners of Earth. Admiral Kalen heard these reports and understood the weight of them. He said to Arya, "We have become more than soldiers. We have become a symbol. The galaxy sees us as a chance to fight back." Arya smiled faintly. "And symbols are harder to kill than fleets." A dangerous meeting one night, a secret message reached the Solar Vanguard. A group of alien leaders from worlds long under Zorath control wished to meet Kalen. They wanted to see if humanity truly was what the Whispers claimed. The meeting was held on a neutral moon, far from Zorath patrols. Kalen stood before the gathered leaders, tall insect-like beings, scaled reptilians, and even fragile bird-like species. All had lived under the Empire's shadow. One of them spoke, a heavy-voiced reptilian elder. "Humans, why do you fight? Your world is gone. You could have lived quietly in the shadows. Why return?" Kalen looked at them with steady eyes. "Because Earth was more than a place. It was home, and home lives inside us even if the soil is gone. We fight not just for Earth, but for the right of every people to live without chains." The chamber fell silent. The alien leaders exchanged glances. Finally, the elder nodded slowly. "Then perhaps your fire can light our darkness." It was not a promise, but it was the beginning of something greater. Shadows of fear back in the golden halls of the Zorath High Council. Anger boiled. Reports of rebellions reached them daily. Entire sectors were becoming unstable. The High Warlord roared in fury. "This is the work of humans. Their name poisons the stars." Counselor Therex, the elder who remembered Earth, spoke calmly. We thought them weak. We thought them gone. But their spirit is strong. If we do not crush them quickly, the Empire itself may break. The Council agreed to send their most feared weapon, the Dreadlord fleets, commanded by generals who had never lost, the oath of humanity. On the solar vanguard, Kalen gathered his people once again. He stood before thousands of soldiers, officers, and crew. His voice rang with power. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors swore an oath that Earth would not be forgotten, that one day we would return. That oath lives in us today. He lifted his hand toward the symbol of Earth glowing on the screen. The Zorath burned our home, but they cannot burn our spirit. They enslave others, but they cannot chain hope. We are more than survivors. We are the fire of Earth, and we will not be stopped. The soldiers roared in answer. For Earth. The cry thundered through the ship, through the fleet, and into the hearts of all who heard it. The storm ahead rebellion was no longer just whispers. It was action. Across the stars, fires of resistance burned. The Zorath Empire, once unshaken, now faced uprisings on dozens of worlds. Yet Kalen knew this was only the beginning. The Zorath would not fall easily. Their strength was vast, their fleets countless. The road ahead would be filled with blood and sacrifice. But humanity had waited 3,000 years. They had been patient, they had grown strong, and now they carried not only their own hope, but the hope of many. As the fleet prepared for the next great battle, Kalen stood at the viewing deck, staring into the endless stars. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Earth, your fire has spread. We are no longer alone. And with that, the sparks of rebellion began to grow into flames that would shake the entire galaxy. The ruins of Earth floated in silence, circling a dead star. The once blue planet, full of oceans and forests, had been reduced to a broken shell 3,000 years ago. Chunks of its crust drifted in orbit like ancient scars. From a distance, it looked like a shattered pearl, a memory of what had once been alive. For centuries, the Zorath Empire guarded the ruins. They called it a forbidden zone. No ship was allowed near. To them, Earth was a warning, a symbol of what happened to those who defied their rule. But to humanity, it was sacred ground. Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge of the solar vanguard. His fleet had grown. Humans were no longer fighting alone. The Valens had joined them along with small groups of rebels from other worlds. The fleet stretched across the stars, hundreds of ships flying under the banner of Earth. Kalen's voice was steady as he looked at the glowing sphere on the star map. 3,000 years ago, this was our home. Today we return, not as wanderers, but as warriors. The Zorath trapped, but the Zorath knew of their approach. The High Council had gathered one of their greatest fleets to defend the ruins. Thousands of golden warships waited, forming a shining wall around Earth's remains. At the center floated the Dreadlord flagship commanded by General Verox, a ruthless leader who had never lost a battle. From his throne on the bridge, Verox sneered. Let the humans come. Let them see what remains of their precious world. We will crush their hope and scatter their ashes once again. Arrival at Earth, the Terran fleet arrived in formation. As the shattered Earth came into view, silence filled every human ship. Soldiers stared at the broken planet on their screens. Some cried quietly, others clenched their fists. For them, Earth was not just a ruin. It was family. It was history. It was everything that had been stolen. Kalen's voice cut through the silence. Do not mourn. Do not despair. Earth is not gone as long as we live. We carry it inside us, and today we fight for it. The fleet raised its banners. The symbol of Earth glowed on every ship, a blue sphere wrapped in silver light. Across the stars, the message was clear. Humanity had come home. Clash of armadas. The Zorath fleet moved first. Thousands of ships spread into a wall of gold, their weapons flashing like suns. The void exploded with fire as beams and plasma bolts filled space. Kalen stood firm. All wings advance. Strike groups scatter and break their lines. Shields to maximum. The human fleet surged forward. Smaller Terran ships darted between Zorath formations, striking engines and weak points. The solar vanguard unleashed its great cannons, cutting through enemy armor like glass. The battle was chaos. Explosions lit the darkness. Whole ships tore apart, drifting into the void. The humans fought with precision, their tactics sharp and unpredictable. But the Zorath came with numbers, pressing hard against every formation. Captain Arya shouted over the noise of alarms. Admiral, we're outnumbered 5-1. We can't hold this line forever. Kalen's eyes narrowed. Then we won't hold. We'll strike where it matters most. The flag on Earth, while the fleets clashed, a small human strike team broke through. They carried with them a beacon, a great device meant to shine across space, declaring Earth sacred once more. Guided by Captain Arya herself, the strike team weaved through enemy fire, racing toward the shattered surface of Earth. Pieces of land, mountains broken from the crust, floated in orbit like silent islands. When they landed on one of the largest fragments, the air was thin, the ground lifeless. Arya stepped out with her soldiers. She held the beacon in her hands. This is not just a mission, she told them. This is history. Together they planted the beacon into the soil. It lit up with blue light brighter than any star. Across the galaxy, the signal was received. Earth lives. Humanity has returned. Every human ship cheered. Even in the middle of battle, soldiers cried out with joy. The Zorath raged, realizing that no matter what happened, the humans had already won something greater than a fight. They had reclaimed their home in spirit. Varrox strikes back, but General Varrox would not allow this insult. He turned his massive flagship toward the beacon, preparing to destroy it with a single strike. End their hope, he roared. The great cannon of the Zorath flagship powered up, glowing like a sun. If fired, it would shatter the beacon and the humans with it. On the solar vanguard, Kalen saw the danger. Forward all power! Protect the beacon. The fleet moved desperately, throwing themselves between the cannon and the surface. Human ships burned as they absorbed the blasts, shields collapsing, hulls breaking. Still, they did not retreat. Finally, Kalen ordered the solar vanguard itself into the path. If hope must live, then we will be its shield, he declared. The flagship took the full force of Varrox's fire. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring, metal tearing, but the beacon remained untouched, still shining across space, turning the tide. The Zorath pressed harder, but the humans refused to fall. Their allies joined in, Valan ships darting into enemy flanks, rebels striking from hidden angles. One by one, the golden warships began to break. Inside his flagship, Varrox watched in disbelief. These are not the weaklings of old. They fight like fire. For the first time in centuries, the Zorath general felt fear. Admiral Kalen gave his final command. All ships focus fire on Varrox's flagship. End this. Every human and allied ship unleashed their weapons. Streams of energy tore into the massive golden vessel. Explosions ripped through its sides. At last, the flagship cracked apart, burning as it fell into Earth's orbit. Varrox's voice echoed once more, filled with rage. This is not the end, humans. The Empire will rise again. And then the ship was gone. Victory at the ruins. When the last Zorath ship retreated, silence returned to the battlefield. The humans had done the impossible. They had fought one of the Empire's greatest fleets and stood victorious. On the broken surface of Earth, the beacon glowed brighter than ever, a symbol seen across the galaxy. Rebellions cheered. Oppressed worlds rose with new strength. Even distant empires, once afraid of the Zorath, now looked at humans with respect. Kalen stood on the bridge, weary but proud. His ship was damaged, his fleet scarred, but his spirit was unbroken. Earth, he whispered softly, your children have come home. Captain Arya stood beside him, her eyes on the beacon. We've shown them, Admiral. Earth is not forgotten, Kalen nodded. No, Earth is forever. The beginning of something greater. Though they had won, Kalen knew the war was far from over. The Zorath would return angrier and stronger, but the humans had planted their flag on Earth. They had given the galaxy a symbol that could not be erased. And so the battle for the ruins became the spark of a new age. Humanity was no longer just a forgotten race. They were leaders, warriors, and symbols of freedom. The galaxy would never be the same again. As the Terran fleet sailed away from Earth's broken shell, the beacon continued to shine. It was not just a light. It was a promise that Earth would live again. The ruins of Earth glowed beneath the beacon, a symbol of hope and resilience in the darkness of space. From orbit, Admiral Kalen watched as the remnants of his fleet floated above the shattered world. Ships of all sizes, human, Valan, and allied vessels, hovered like stars gathered to honor a memory and a promise. For 3,000 years, humanity had wandered the galaxy, scattered and forgotten. Now they had returned, and they had taken their first step toward reclaiming not just their home, but their place in the galaxy. Rebuilding from ashes, Kalen stood on the observation deck, staring at the broken surface of Earth. Mountains were shattered, oceans gone, forests reduced to dust. Yet in his heart the planet was alive. It lived in the stories, the dreams, and the memories of every human. "We start here," he said quietly to Captain Arya Vey. "From ashes we will rebuild, not just the land but the spirit of humanity." Arya nodded. "It won't be easy, Admiral. Systems are still loyal to the Zorath. Many worlds will resist our leadership." Kalen's eyes were steady. "Then we will show them why Earth's children endure. We do not seek only survival. We seek life, freedom, and justice. That is what makes us human." The Federation of the Stars word spread quickly across the galaxy. Humans had reclaimed their home and struck fear into the Zorath. Systems long under oppression now reached out to the Terran fleet, offering allegiance and support. Kalen convened a council aboard the Solar Vanguard. Leaders from human colonies, Valons, and allied worlds gathered. "We stand at the dawn of a new age," Kalen told them. "Not one of conquest, but of unity. Together we can build a federation where no world lives under fear." The council agreed. They formed the Terran Ascendancy, a new alliance of worlds dedicated to freedom, justice, and cooperation. Humans were not just survivors. They were leaders. The Zorath retreat. The High Warlord of the Zorath Empire could no longer ignore the growing resistance. Rebellions erupted across the Empire, fueled by the return of humanity. Worlds that once bowed in fear now resisted openly. General Varrox had been defeated, his flagship destroyed. Other commanders hesitated, unsure of how to fight a force that carried not only skill but hope. In the golden halls of the Zorath High Council, arguments raged. Some called for immediate retaliation. Others argued that the Empire had grown too arrogant, that humans had struck a nerve that could destroy their unity. For the first time in centuries, doubt spread among the rulers of the Empire. The galaxy was changing and the humans were at its center. Reclaiming Earth while the galaxy watched, humans began the long task of reclaiming Earth. Engineers, scientists, and settlers worked alongside allies to rebuild habitats, purify water, and restore ecosystems where possible. Though the planet's surface remained broken, humanity's presence turned it from a graveyard into a new beginning. Kalen walked among the workers, observing the efforts. Children born among the stars played on floating platforms, learning the stories of a home they had never seen. Adults cleared debris and rebuilt structures, honoring every memory of the old world. Arya approached him holding a small, glowing seed, a symbol of life returning to Earth. "Everything starts small," she said. Kalen smiled. "Yes, and from small things forests grow, symbols of hope." The beacon on Earth's ruins continued to shine. It was more than a signal. It became a symbol of unity and resistance. Across the galaxy, oppressed worlds looked to the beacon as a sign that they too could rise. Small fleets carrying human advisors, soldiers, and supplies traveled to systems under Zorath control. They offered help, shared technology, and taught the oppressed how to organize. With each mission, humanity's influence grew, not through fear, but through hope. Even planets far from Earth celebrated the Terran ascendancy. Festivals honored the return of humans. Stories of courage and resilience spread through the stars. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy remembered humanity, not as victims, but as leaders and symbols of freedom. A time of reflection, quiet night. Kalen stood on the surface of Earth staring at the stars. Around him, human and allied ships glowed like a constellation of living lights. The planet's wounds were visible, yet life had begun to return. 3,000 years, he whispered. We were gone, and now we are here. Arya joined him, her eyes reflecting the beacon's glow. Do you think the Zorath will ever forgive this? She asked. Kalen shook his head slowly. Forgive? Perhaps not, but they will respect it. Humanity is no longer a prey to fear. We are a power that rises not from cruelty, but from endurance and hope. They stood together in silence, watching the dawn over Earth's broken horizon, preparing for the future. Though Earth was reclaimed, Kalen knew challenges lay ahead. The Zorath Empire would return stronger and angrier. Some worlds might betray them. New threats could arise from unknown regions, yet humanity was ready. Their fleets were trained, their alliances growing. And most importantly, their people had something no empire could destroy: spirit, courage, and unity. Kalen addressed the fleet from the solar vanguard. "We have taken the first step. Earth is no longer a memory. It is a foundation for the future. The galaxy will see us as we truly are, not as victims, not as wanderers, but as humans, and we will build a future worthy of our ancestors' dreams." The fleet roared in response. "For Earth! For humanity!" The cry echoed through space, carried across thousands of ships through planets and colonies, and into the hearts of all who believed in freedom. The dawn of humanity. The first human settlements on Earth began to take shape. Cities rose slowly, built from the remains of the old and the innovations of the new. Schools, libraries, and meeting halls sprang up alongside farms and clean water systems. Humans, Valens, and other allies worked side by side. The Terran ascendancy became more than a military force. It became a government, a community, a federation of free worlds united by a common goal. For the first time, humans walked freely on their home planet. Children laughed under skies that were still bruised from centuries of destruction. Adults planted trees and gardens. Artists painted, poets wrote, and scientists explored the ruins, searching for knowledge buried beneath the debris. Kalen visited each settlement, offering encouragement and wisdom. He reminded his people that rebuilding was not just about surviving. It was about creating a world that honored the past and embraced the future. A galaxy awakened far across the stars. The Zorath Empire struggled to maintain control. Rebellions continued to spread, inspired by the humans. Once oppressed worlds now had allies and hope. Where humans led, freedom followed. Kalen knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was awakening to a new order, one where fear no longer ruled. Humans were no longer wanderers or ghosts. They were leaders, teachers, and symbols of endurance. Even distant observers from other civilizations, who had once doubted humanity, now took notice. The fire of Earth had spread, touching worlds that had never even seen the planet itself. A promise to the stars standing atop the newly rebuilt steps of a settlement. Kalen addressed his people once more. "We have returned from ashes. We have reclaimed our home, and we will not stop here. We will ensure that no world suffers as Earth once did. Humanity will shine as a light across the galaxy, not to conquer, but to guide, to inspire, and to protect. This is our promise. This is our duty. This is the dawn of humanity." The people cheered, ships lifted into orbit, beacons glowed across the galaxy. A new era had begun. The stars, silent witnesses to centuries of loss, now shone upon a rising humanity. The children of Earth, once thought extinct, had returned, and they would never be forgotten again. Epilogue. The fire that lives. In the quiet of space, Admiral Kalen gazed at Earth, the beacon still shining. The Zorath Empire was wounded, its pride shattered. Rebellions continued across distant worlds, growing stronger each day. Kalen whispered to himself, "Earth lives in all of us, and now it will live in the galaxy." The dawn of humanity was not just the return of a species, it was the awakening of hope, courage, and unity across the stars. From the ashes of a lost world, a new civilization rose, ready to lead, inspire, and protect, and somewhere in the infinite galaxy, the words echoed among the stars. After 3,000 years, humanity has returned. Earth speaks again,